to find an interval estimate for each population proportion, we're gonna have to find or actually estimate the sample standard error for proportions. I am going to label this row as standard error. And recall that the standard error for proportions is square root of p hat times 1 minus p hat over n. The syntax for square root in Excel is sqrt, and in this cell we'll type in equal sqrt open parenthesis. Well, p hat for only this sample is sitting in this cell, the 0.397. You can actually click on that cell and then times open parenthesis 1 minus the same p hat. Click on it again, close parenthesis, divided by, and here the n is basically the total of those who said yes to job security is good, and that number is 2,943. You could just type it, or you can click on the cell. It will automatically input that number as the denominator of this fraction. You can close parenthesis and hit enter. To apply the same operation to this cell, you can just select that cell and drag it over. And this is the sample standard error for the second group. We also need to find the margin of error for each confidence interval. I'm going to label this column as NE for each proportion. If you are finding a 95% confidence interval, the Z alpha over 2 is 1.96. Type in equal 1.96 times the standard error. Hit enter. Margin of error is about 1.77%. Once again, you can drag that over to apply the same operation to the second sample. And the margin of error for the second proportion is about 4.33%. Now, given these numbers, we are now able to find the confidence interval. So once again, let's label the row properly. For each proportion, and the operation here is the sample statistic plus or minus the margin of error. Let's put the minus here, do equal. Our p hat is sitting in cell C17. You can just click on that cell, minus the margin of error, hit enter. That gives you the lower bound for the estimate of the first population proportion, and type in equal, again, sample proportion, this time plus the margin of error. So what we have here is the a 95% confidence interval for the first proportion. Do the same operation for the second proportion. And we'll do that in this cell, equal to p hat. We'll do the minus first, the margin of error, enter. And in this cell, we find the upper bound. So again, equal to p hat, this time plus the margin of error. Let's use different colors for each confidence interval so that we can differentiate between the two. I can select the two cells and go in the toolbar and let me zoom in and choose this icon, which is the icon for fill color. Look at the list and choose a color of your choice. Let's just choose that one. Do the same thing for the confidence interval for the second proportion. Choose a different color. Let's choose that. Yeah. If you compare the two intervals, you can notice that they do not overlap. The upper bound for the first interval is 0.415 and the lower bound for the second interval is 0.4317. This already implies that the two proportions are very likely not to be equal, and you can reject the hypothesis that P1 is equal to P2. There seems to be dependency between job interfering with family life and job security.